Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Good morning to you on this Monday morning in the last 10 days of Ramadan. You're listening to Z on the Rise and Shine Ramadan Radio 87.7 FM. Of course, I'm going to give a gift voucher to the first person who calls in right this minute, right? It's on 0116 482 2086 077 855 Now, don't all be getting in that queue, pushing and shoving, right? The first person who rings is going to take the voucher and he's going to be gone. And after Ramadan, he's going to go spend that voucher somewhere on Evington Road in one of the shops. There is a gift for you, Monday morning gift to keep you all energized and keep you in positive energy. So put your hand up right this minute if you're feeling good, if you have some positive energy, right? That's what we have to do. The first 10 minutes, it takes me that long to get all of you woken up and ready either to go to work, go to your school or wherever. Now, school holidays are still upon us, so all of you school run gang are having a good sleep this morning, right? But here, there's no time to sleep here. In the work of community development, you just don't have the time to do all of that. If you sleep, you're going to be snoozing and you're going to lose the plot. Of course, last week was EDI, and a lot of messages that I am reading right this minute. Right this minute, I'm reading a lot of messages for a lot of people had a lot to say. And of course, DEI is what they call it in the USA, as we found out on Saturday morning, and EDI is in UK. And put your hand up if you know, right hand up if you know what is the meaning of EDI. Of course, I couldn't even find out of 10, 2 people. That's about all I found who knew what is EDI. They did not know, because I'm getting a little bit worried because a lot of people don't have a clue. Awareness. That's what it's all about. You know, when we do the letters, the D's, we did the C with Sadiq Khan in London, we did the E with the HCC Center, and we did the F with one individual called Richard. And of course, we're going to add the A and the B on. Soon somebody will send a message in to say what is the meaning of the 3 A's and what is the meaning of the 3 B's. And by the end of Ramadan, we'll have reached right up to Z. And of course, somebody's going to get really stuck on Q. Of course, I just picked the D at a random. So somebody who can make something out of Q, that will be absolutely brilliant. I think that is a person who will have had the best intellectual mind. So yesterday, what did we do yesterday? We were busy raising funds. What did we do Saturday? We were busy raising funds with the Rahma Mercy. Now, at the end of the month, we will let you know through our social media how much funds have we raised. And of course, a nomination is awaited from all of you for a community champion and also for an organization that is doing some excellent, wonderful, productive, enhancing work in the community that we can forward on to BBC Radio Leicester. So please, my friend A.D. Damon there is waiting for you to send in your nominations, and there will be a panel of experts, community champions, who are going to dish out the awards either for community organizations or for an aspiring individual. And you see, AD had mentioned the young guy who is running for cancer. So he is running from his area where he lives in Groby all the way to people that are afflicted with cancer. He's running right up to their houses. And that's what he's doing, to raise awareness and to raise funds. So he's doing an excellent job. So many people like him are doing great work in the community, and these are the heroes of our community. Now, another thing I was very disappointed in is how many people knew the population in Leicester. So yesterday, we just told everybody, go on the Google and find out yourself. And one person did that, and he came up with a figure exceeding 400,000. Of course, I had it around less than 400, but he said, no, it's more than 400,000, and he earned himself a voucher. So awareness is very important. The first and most important thing is you got to know how many people live in your city of Leicester. So right now, if you're near your computer, your laptop, your mobile, do get yourself aware, because somebody's going to ask you along the way and you're not going to know, and they're going to say, well, why don't you know? You live in the city of Leicester. How long have you been living here? I've been living here 50 years and I still don't know how many people live in this city. That's not going to be very pleasant. And next thing they're going to ask you is, who's your MP in your area? You're not going to know. Then they're going to ask you, who's your councillor? Who represents your ward? I don't know. That is where we're getting at. If we live in an I don't know society, then we are not going to develop. We're not going to develop whatsoever. So the new world is all about data. What do you think Facebook do with your stats? When every time you're on it, if you're chatting about a certain subject, that is you. That is your makeup. That is your brain, the way it ticks. So you are a statistic. Every one of you. Look in the mirror and say, I am nothing but a statistic. That's what I am. It's a word that I struggle to say. But of course, that's how it goes. Now, somebody sent a message to me that EDI is also EID. Now, what's he talking about when he says EID? He's talking about Eid. Eid. So you twist those letters around and you come out with something different. EID is Eid. So it's not Eid yet. It will be on Sunday or Monday respectively. So let's wait till we get closer to the time and we'll know better when it's Eid. Let's not be jumping to conclusion right this minute. Today is only Monday. So we have to right now focus on the last 10 days, because the last 10 days is the best days of Ramadan, where you make du'as. There's the odd nights, but make du'as every day. Make du'as for all your dear deceased ones. Make dua for your mother and father. Make dua for everyone in the ummah. We have conflict. How many countries right now are afflicted with conflict? Start again with the A to Z of countries and you will see how many countries are afflicted with conflict. And not to forget our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Have you seen those videos? Have you seen the WhatsApps going around about the absolute horrid conditions? What are they doing to the Al-Aqsa Mosque? Have you seen those videos? And I was very upset that in the month of Ramadan that we need to do war and we need to create conflict. Who are the manufacturers of conflict? What do you do? I create conflict. You know, that is absolutely what's happening right now. Look in Ukraine, as we are talking about EDI, promoting EDI. Do you think there is EDI in Ukraine? A message on my screen here says, is there conflict in Ukraine? No, there is no conflict. Of course there is conflict in Ukraine. Is there EDI in Ukraine? Of course there is no EDI happening there. Does anyone even have a clue what is the meaning of EDI? So we need to contact our MP, we need to contact our councillors and define EDI to them and tell them, is there any EDI happening in Ukraine? So as our government and many other governments are busy sending aid, like more weapons of destruction, more weapons that will add fuel to the fire, how are you going to stop a war if you continue to keep sending weapons to any war-torn region in the world? You're not going to stop the conflict. In fact, what you're going to do is escalate, and many, many lives are going to be lost. What is the population in Yemen? Anybody know? Well, of course, if you don't know, you just go to Alexa and Alexa will tell you. Or you go to Siri and Siri will tell you. Or you go to Bixby and Bixby will tell you. That's how easy it is. What is the population in Yemen? Now, Yemen is war-stricken for how many years? People have lost count because they simply are not connected over there. But war is war. Wherever it is, lives are lost, people are dying. Women, children, hunger, poverty. Along with war comes all the aftermath, which is poverty. Now, you see, I'll tell you now, Yemen is, somebody sent a message, yes, correct, Yemen is in the region of 20 million people. right? That's how many people we have in Yemen. And of course, we also have, guess how many people? 230,000 approximately have lost their lives in Yemen. So if we go through the A to Z of war across the globe, you will be absolutely shocked that how many countries are war-torn right now. And of course, how does that reflect upon all of us in the city that we live in, Leicester? How does conflict, how does atrocity, war over the other side affect us all? Ultimately, like you've seen fuel crises, you have seen food crises. What have you seen happen as a result? Aimlessly, the prices have shot up of all commodities. Like oil, a 25-litre can of oil used to cost £29, £28 in the shop. Now it costs £43 to £45. That is how it affects. Now, oil is an ingredient used by all. Now, once that price goes up, what happens? Your food goes up. So now you go along all the shops, the food prices are going up. So this is what's happening. So people are having to take drastic measures, and as a result, a lot of people will suffer out of this. Now, as you know, Boris was in India last week, and there was a press release on ITN News about Leicester, the shops along the Melton Road. And what were they saying? They're saying, Boris, while you're there, do something about the food imports that we have in the city of Leicester. Most of that food is coming from India. It's packed, it's in canned foods, and the costs have gone absolutely horrendously 3 times more because the logistic costs have gone up 3 to 4 times. Now, when you import one container at 20 foot, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and then all that is going to reflect to what you, the consumer, has to pay for that. So atrocities across the globe affect everybody. Everybody is affected, and we all are going to suffer from it, right? So somebody sent a message, who is going to be your esteemed guest today? Well, do you think they tell me 3 minutes before they'll tell me who the guest is, and I've got to quickly put the Z, knowledge is power hat on, and get myself adapt to change, and that's what I have to do every day. So to do a guest every day, sometimes 2 guests, or sometimes even 3, is no mean mission. I can tell you that. If you want to have a go, then do so. Well, now I've found a replacement here for me, as it is a long time I've been doing this. So I found an aspiring youngster called Mohammad Safi. Now, he is nominated to be given an award to be an aspiring future community advocate, a community development officer, even a community leader, a councillor, or even MP. Why? Because at the age of 10, he's brimming with confidence. He is moving so fast that when I was 10, I was smiling because I spoke 5 languages and that's about it. But there's no way I could do what he's doing today. He came here, he was the head fundraiser for Islamic Relief. What he did within an hour, nobody achieved that feat. In 1 hour, he had practically all of his 442 relatives in Leicester, extended family, call in and donate funds for orphanages, for water, for poverty alleviation, and he was absolutely buzzing. And he was basically kind of guy that he did not ask you to do anything. He had that charisma in him that he would just say something and you would follow. So that is absolutely brilliant. So my producer is giving me a hand signal to put my headphones on. When you come up at 8:44 and the program starts at 8:45, you just sometimes forget to put your headphones on. But I'm ready for action right now. So Ramadan Radio, you're listening to Z on the Rise and Shine Show 87.7 FM. You can call in on 0116 482 2086. Or you can WhatsApp us on 077 48 855 055. So how are you all this morning? you woken up now? Because it takes you 15 minutes to get out of bed, because you said, I'll do so in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, and eventually you get out at 9, if you do that is. So some of you listening in from work, put your left hand up for a change today, so you can have some little bit of an exercise, right? So my producer is sending me one of his famous hand signals to tell me, get ready for our guest. Is our guest arrived, waiting in our reception? As yet, has not arrived. So, guest is late. What is the penalty for a guest who arrives late? What is the penalty? Of course.
She's just coming just now.
Okay, she's just come in now. So will there be a penalty for this guest?
That's up to you.
Late penalty. You, the listeners, you can suggest, and you can put forward the penalty. Maybe a donation to a charity in Leicester. Well, talking about charity, justgiving.com/fundraising/Ramadan-radio. I want you to click on that, and that is in relation to Leicester Children's Hospital, and that is what I'd like you to do. If you can do that, make a little donation. It's for the Eid gifts for the children at Leicester Children's Hospital. So that's what we have to do. So here we have a message here for EDI, abbreviation for Electronic Data Interchange, a standard for exchanging business documents or other information between computer systems. Well, I don't know what to say about that one. I'm lost. EDI we're not referring to that EDI. We are talking about EDI concerning the issues that we have been talking about throughout this week gone. And this week we have gone forward to start talking about bringing awareness about community partnerships. So our theme this week is community partnerships, but we are still getting messages in about EDI. Of course, EDI is equality, diversity, inclusion. And we were talking about this throughout last week. And what did we get? We got a lot of people contact us, and they're telling us that there was no such EDI in Ukraine because people of color were absolutely put to one side. And that is not EDI. And we, as a government, are sending weapons of destruction over there. Why are we doing that? Because that is nothing to do with EDI whatsoever. So when people of color are being discriminated against, then that is wrong. And I want you to write to your councillor, to your MPs, write to anybody you have to bring about change, because we're not going to get a change if we don't connect. If your MP knows that he's received thousands of emails, right, he will do something about it. Otherwise, nothing, 0, 0, 0. That's what's going to happen, and it's going to be same old, and we will not go forward, we'll go backwards. So that's what's happening. So please, last week, throughout the week, I was asking people, do you know anything about EDI? What is EDI? They don't know. They say, is it ED? Short for Eid. They say, oh, it's EDI. EID is Eid. Eid is the Muslim festival after the month of Ramadan, right? The day to celebrate is called Eid. So they would spin it round. But again, nobody even knew that in the USA, they don't say EDI, they say DEI. Over there, it's a little bit different. But you know what? You can spin it as you wish, but end of the day, we all here, each one of us, some of you are going to put the big I into the EDI. I'm going to be putting the big D into the word diversity, and some of you are going to put the equality, the big E. So that's how we're going to spell this, is with big letters, E, D, and I. So by the time we finish this month, every one of you will be on board. You're going to join this train, and we're going to make change together. Because if you don't do that, we'll all be sad for it. You can forget about your children, your grandchildren having a better tomorrow. So today, I'd like to welcome my guest. She's going to introduce herself to you right this minute.
Good morning. I am Ashiedu Joel.
Assalamu alaikum. That's a greeting in our Islamic faith. Are you familiar with that?
I am, and I would respond, alaikum salam.
Oh, you are very much clued up. That's wonderful. So we are here We were just talking as you were catching in on even last week's program, where the whole week we were discussing EDI. So if you can give a little bit details about yourself, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So let's go with yesterday.
So yesterday, today, tomorrow, my name still remains the same.
That is wonderful. That's good to know.
Yeah. And one of the things I do is I run or founded a boutique consultancy, and we actually work around the topical issue you've been discussing: equality, diversity, and inclusion, or equity, diversity, and inclusion, as our American brothers prefer to define the E as equity.
You got to come closer to the mic and talk a little bit louder.
Oh, okay.
Although I can hear you very clear, but
yeah.
some of the listeners are saying I can't hear.
My apologies to them.
You got to get charged, get some positive energy in there.
I
right?
do.
Yeah.
I am quite soft-spoken, so I have to then
Yeah,
probably
that
project.
is better. That is better.
So, with regards to what I do within that space, as you have been, telling the listeners, my job or my role is to ensure that when we look at the community, when we look at our society, that people that look like yourself and myself, black and brown people, we do actually have a huge stake in the decisions that are made about us, that concern us, that impact us, impact our children, impact how we progress in the workplace, impact how our businesses are viewed and run. So it's quite a broad space to actually start talking about, but happy to delve into whichever area you feel you want us to talk about.
Well, it is a complex area because I've been going around throughout the week and I couldn't even find 2 people out of 10 who knew what is EDI. So I am absolutely shocked that if people don't understand the value of equality, diversity, inclusion, they themselves need educating upon it for them to be aware. That's what I have found.
Yeah, you're quite right there, and I think
I'm very upset about that.
I don't blame you.
I would like you to share my upset with me.
I am just as upset as you, but I think for us to make progress, we have to actually be looking at how we change how spaces are set up and made up. So about 15, 20 years ago, when I first started at a local authority, whenever you went for an interview, people would ask you, what does equal opportunities mean to you? And immediately the expected response was, that you treat people equally. And somehow that message has carried on permeating through the way people view the EDI agenda, that's the equality, diversity, and inclusion agenda, because it is seen as if I, as a manager, I, as a leader, treat everybody underneath me or everybody who works with me the same. I can't be accused of favoritism. I can't be accused of not being a fair leader. But what that does is, if I apply the same brush to every stroke, I don't recognize people's differences. I don't get to value what makes us different. So we come from different parts of the world. I mean, society is now so global. People come from everywhere. Take Leicester, for instance. It's a wonderful city to live in because we have so many people from across the world represented here and call Leicester home. But how do I, as a woman with many intersectionalities, and yourself, as a man with the same, probably, many intersectionalities as well, how do we coexist and how can we work together being led by the same person without me feeling that you as a man are giving preferential treatment, or you feeling that I as a woman am giving preferential treatment. That is where the whole discussion around inclusion and equity, so moving away from equality now to equity, because if things are equitable, you take away the barriers that separate us. So you don't need to make any adjustments out of place for me and for you either.
We as presenters, broadcasters, our voice has to reach out to the world.
Yes.
Right? What I'm saying is that we have to be balanced. That's what we do here. We have to be balanced. And sometimes if we are not, we need a quick reminder that we have to be balanced. And we quickly come back to remind ourselves. Now, balance is what it's all about. Our lives are about balance, aren't they?
Yes.
So when we eat our food, if there's not balance in what we eat, how we eat, when we eat, what time we eat, there's going to be a problem, isn't it?
We could fall ill, definitely.
So when we go out in the community, or when we go out to our workplace, it's not about us and them.
No, it's not.
We are not aware, and the other side is not aware. We're all in it, in this journey. We're all on that train, traveling together, and we don't know. We're not aware.
I think when you say people are not aware, sometimes if you take the whole discussion around diversity, for instance, it is always viewed from a standpoint of you have different people, diversity of thought, people who look different, who sound different in the workplace. So that means, automatically, if we're diverse, we're inclusive. That's, some of the faulty, thinking around the whole EDI agenda. But the fact that you and I, or, people from different parts of the world are represented around the table, the next question is, whose voice is heard? Whose voice is excluded? We can be around the table, but if our voices are not heard, if we're not part of the decision-making process, then that table is a faulty table. And so people very quickly...
I can tell you that there's a lot of faulty tables about, right? There's a lot of faulty tables about all over.
So you then have people who become very quickly disenfranchised, who very quickly become demotivated, because they can see that even though they are physically represented around the table, where it matters, their voices are not heard. They have no real impact in the decisions that are taken, in the the way policy is drafted or scoped and developed. And these are critical things that have come to impact each and every one of us. So one of the things I heard you say, when I came in, was around wanting to leave a better tomorrow for our children and our grandchildren. That is every parent, every grandparent, every brother, sister's aspiration, that tomorrow will definitely be better than today. But, we have to make sure that we take responsibility and we're able to hold to account those who are responsible for shaping those agendas around, equality.
Is a fast response from one of our listeners, avid listeners. We do quite have a lot of them who are very, very scrutinizing, and they make comment, and he's saying, if you're not on the table, you'll be part of the menu.
Exactly.
Right? But if you are on the table, then don't go there unless you are going to bring about positive change.
Exactly.
Because he's saying in his message here that many people who do get on the table, they go there with the right intention, but within 2 days or 2 meetings, they forget what they were there for, and they become part of that system.
Yes.
Right? And the train is going backwards. You see? Now, when you are going forwards, you're all winning, aren't you?
Yes.
So this is very interesting. I think we have mountains to climb to bring that awareness onto the table, because the workplace of old was based around bias.
Yes.
You have your senior management, your boardroom was biased. Now, the new workplace, there's a new sheriff in town, isn't it?
Yes.
Tell them your name again.
My name is Ashiedu Joel.
Okay. Where are you from then?
In terms of my upbringing, or
You know that famous question when you get to the airport and they say,
yes,
where are you from?
where are you from? I know.
Where are you from? And what do you say?
So I am originally from Nigeria. I was born, raised in Nigeria. Came here nearly 25 years ago. So Leicester has been my home for the best part of 20 years. My children were born here, educated here. And it is a city that is dear to me because I have had good, not so good, ugly, not, beautiful experiences here. So the whole, my passion around equity, diversity, and inclusion is born from my lived experience, because that is something that we seem to forget when we look to engage with people. And how we have experienced a situation informs the way we respond going forwards. So when you ask people who have never experienced negative backlash, or people who have never been discriminated against, people who have had, operate from a standpoint of, well, that doesn't exist because I've never heard it, I've never seen it. You say to them, design what works. They design from that very narrow viewpoint of what you're talking about. I don't know it, I have not experienced
Okay, now when we talk about equality and equity, we have our men folk, we have our women folk.
Definitely.
A man who sat on the table should not be patronizing towards a woman and should not be condescending.
That's true.
Right? Because that makes a woman feel bad.
Yes.
So equality is not only about people of color sitting on the boardroom table. Equality is also about mannerisms, our humanity, our understanding that we have to be absolutely well behaved on that table.
I think when you put it like that, it's almost very simplistic, because a child would get it. But one of the things that informs that type of behavior is our own cultural values. So if you've grown up in a society, in a community, or in a family where it is men first all the time, and men who have the power of speech or the power of vote on any decisions, what happens is that person gets into a formal space, and that mindset is projected immediately because you have always had that viewpoint. So I personally have experienced it where I go into a room and in fact, on one particular occasion, I was asked for the tea and coffee, and almost being reprimanded for not sitting down whilst there was no tea, no coffee. But you see, it is down sometimes to the sort of upbringing, the sort of values we have, and the way we see power. So if you've grown up in a culture where power goes to whoever is deemed to be the most respectable, or the most this or the most that, and they cannot do any wrong, you cannot criticize them publicly, you cannot challenge them, it is difficult for that person to come to a space or a society where everybody has a right.
You mean, are you talking about when you challenge, you get deselected? Is that where you're coming from? Because you forgot to tell our listeners that you are an esteemed councillor in an area called Troon.
I am.
Right, Troon, those of you who don't know, of course, just have to remember the Troon Industrial Estate, where a lot of people are working in that industrial estate, is in the part of the city called Thermiston. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so that's where we are. Now, you're a councillor in that area for how long?
I've been a councillor now for 3 years there.
3 years. And is it like youngsters, quite a lot of youngsters come to me and they said, we want to be a councillor. And then you ask them, which party are you going to work with? And guess what they say?
What did I say?
Well, those that say that they're going to represent the blues or the reds or the yellows. And I see you wearing yellow today.
Well, it's mustard.
It's mustard, yeah. It's very close to yellow, right? Shouldn't you be wearing, which party are you with?
I am a Labour councillor.
Should be wearing red on radio live.
Well, nobody can see what I'm wearing.
Right.
Anyway, after this, I've got another event
Okay.
I'm going to.
That's just a banter between you and I, right? So it's so important that we get a lot of our youngsters
Sensitized, yes.
right now,
Yes.
because time is not on our side now. At what age should a young person enter the world of politics?
I think it depends on how driven the person is. So you can be involved in politics in lots of different ways without, wanting to stand as a councillor or stand as an MP. You can join any political party of your choice and be active, get people, your neighbors, your uncles, your aunts, your parents, your grandparents, to participate in things that impact upon all of you. So
Ashiedu, yesterday, I had the pleasure of meeting Mohammad Safi. He was 10 years old, articulate, confident, and one of those no-nonsense kind of guys. And I said to him, how old are you? He said, I'm 16. I said, oh, you look 18 to me. I knew he was only about 10 or 11, but brimming with confidence. Now, if we get kids like that, they have a future that they can go anywhere.
they can.
And if we get those kind of kids who at the age of 16, at 18, they are able to enter the political field, aren't they?
Yes.
So is it you have to be 18 years old to become a councillor?
I should think so. I honestly, at the top of my head, I don't know, but I think you have to.
That's your homework for.
Yes, that's my homework.
You
find
let
out
me
the
know,
minimum-
and I'm going to
the
then
minimum age.
keep people informed. Now, what it is, at 18, somebody's going to do their A-levels, then they're going to go to university. So being a councillor or entering the political arena is not on top of their agenda, is it?
I don't necessarily see it that way, because you could be a young person who, from say your right from secondary school, you become, sensitized. So my children, I discuss, politics with them, and they are very broad-minded and quite intent on ensuring, social justice wherever they are. So it is how you are introduced to politics as opposed to the reasons why you are kept away from politics. Because when I first joined and started getting active, one of the things or hurdles I had to jump was from my faith community as a Christian. And people say, well, how can you, as a Christian go into politics? Is that really, politics? And my response was, if you read the Bible and you look at the life of our Lord Jesus Christ, you will see that he himself was a master politician, because he engaged in every facet of society and community in his time. He didn't shy away from any one particular section of the community, a section of life, or government, or governance even. So when we are trying to encourage young people, we need to be speaking truth to power to them. And when we are challenged, we have to be able to sit back and really look at the issues that people have raised with us that is causing them distress.
So you are saying that in the time of the time in history, your Lord Jesus Christ, the Prophet Jesus Christ, as we call him, he was very inclusive.
I believe so.
He was very equitable.
I believe so.
So he wrote the book on diversity. Yeah. So we had diversity in that period of time.
I don't think anybody lays claim to writing the book on diversity.
But his actions.
His actions spoke about being
Exactly.
inclusive and
So
welcoming to
likewise, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he also was very equitable in that respects, where he gave the highest level to Bilal, who was previously a black slave, and he put him on a very high pedestal and chose him to do the azan. That is a Muslim call of prayer. So we look back and we learn from that, don't we?
We do.
There's a lesson to learn from both those incidents.
Both faiths,
One
yes.
you have brought to the table, and one I've brought to the table. And that is a lesson for all of us to adhere to, that the way forward, if we are going to build community partnerships, we first have to understand the EDI, the equity, the equality, the diversity, the inclusion. So this week we are very heavy in community partnerships. Leicester has many regions throughout the city. We have 54. How many councillors we have?
We have 54.
I just gave that away, didn't I? I gave that away. And how many of them are Labour?
52.
What about the other two? Do they turn up for meetings?
They're quite active.
Do they make a lot of noise?
You see, I don't sit on all the committees, so I couldn't be speaking for every committee. But the ones I sit on, yes, there is a lot of contribution from the opposing councillors. So I don't think that we have it's a blanket voice across all the city. No, we do have challenge even from our own internal.
Okay, how about this? If it's allowed in your council, that we find these aspiring youngsters who want to pursue a career, a future in politics. These we have to invest in them.
We do, yes.
We grab hold of them and bring them to one of your meetings so they can just sit there and watch.
I think you could do that. Whichever committee it is you want to go to. I think if you did contact the council to say you have a group of young people who are interested in observing, any of the council's meetings or any of the committee meetings, I'm sure, they will be able to afford that opportunity to them. Because the whole idea of governance or politics is that it is by the people, for the people, and with the people. So you cannot have a political system that excludes people who you are meant to be representing, because the whole idea of local councillors is that we are voted in to actually serve our constituents.
What is in your area, you have all your constituents in percentage of the population of Leicester. What is the population of the city of Leicester?
Well, the last census says we're about just over 330,000 in the city itself.
Well, I'll ask our producer there if he can be wide awake and Google that and let us know.
Well, I think the most reliable, hopefully, if we can get the last census figures, that will tell us,
Was it not supposed to come out by April?
I don't know why it's not out, but that isn't a question that I can answer because
now,
I haven't been.
What if somebody is not even entered his census form, he hasn't filled it in, then what happens, right?
I'm guessing he wouldn't, or she.
No, look at that figure on that screen. Leicester population, Leicester city population.
So we're just over
556,000
people, yes.
Yeah, that is astonishing, isn't it?
It is.
Now, how comes you and I are way out? We are way out.
Well, I was working on the last figures from the last census, which you have to take for
your guidance.
Research purposes as a guide figure. But one of the interesting things about that census 10 or 11 years ago was that Leicester was forecasted to be one of the cities where the ethnic minority community was going to rapidly increase in
You mean
we
will become an ethnic majority?
But Leicester is already a half and half city, so no one demographic has a monopoly over the others, which again comes to the whole discussion we've been having around equality. What is equality or what is equity? To me, it is that everybody who calls Leicester home should believe and feel and know that they do have a voice in decisions that are taken. It goes beyond just numbers. So it is not about how many we are. It is how well we feel that we are being represented, or how active we feel, or how engaged we feel we are in things that happen within the city and around the city. So that, I think, is the critical point around
Of course,
the EDI.
I have been going around the city in different areas, engaging with the different communities. And you have today added the Nigerian community to the letter N. We have been doing here the A to Z of communities. Well, of course, simple ways to say if you're from Nigeria, that is letter N and letter A, and it will be quite revelation for everyone when they put the alphabet on and see the letter A to Z.
I'm sure it will be
Yeah. I mean, just for A, you have about 4 or 5 different countries in the letter A. But the letter where you're going to come stuck at, guess which letter that's going to be?
I couldn't guess. What letter is that?
Letter Q. You're going to struggle to find a diversity from that particular part of the world. And then you'll struggle. You know, nobody will be able to come up with anything. But you will, every other letter, like letter Z, how many people are from that country, starting with letter Z?
You have the Zambians, you have the Zimbabweans, you know, so it's...
Zaire?
You have Zaire. Well, it's no longer Zaire, is it?
No, it's now the Congo, isn't it?
used to
So
be
it's
Zaire, yes.
it's now come down to
C.
C, yeah. So that would be very interesting. So anyone listening right now, do me a little bit of homework, compile me A to Z of all the diversities in Leicester, and another person will give me some accurate data on the number of people that live in Leicester. Of course, letter Q is from Qatar. Anybody from Qatar, put your right hand up. Let me know, because we can include you on that, because that is a diversity, isn't it? Now, tell me something. You and I have been here a long time, haven't we?
We have.
I've been here 50 years. So that's why we're doing the Once Upon a Time 50 years ago. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Once upon a time 50 years ago, in history, 1972, Ugandan Asians were expelled from Uganda. So we came here to England. And that's what we are commemorating, because not that we came here, we were lucky, we came on a plane. Refugees are coming on boats now and drowning, sinking, dying. So we came at a period where we were told not to come to this country. Leicester does not want you. Yes? And what happened a year after, in 1973?
You tell me.
Guess who was in power at that time in the council and governance?
I don't know. I wasn't born. I was born in 1974. So
Well, it was the Blues. They were in charge of the council at that time.
that's interesting information.
And they're no longer there.
Well, I don't.
They're gone. They're not in governance anymore in this city.
Things never stay static, do they?
Well, it's a long time, 50 years, isn't it?
It is.
And there was a really small brief period when the Yellows took over, and then they were also not in power. But that is not so much important as is the equality and the equity. So progressively, we are where we are today. And we have to pick up from today to work together to build those community partnerships.
We do indeed.
And all of you listening in right now, be part of that journey, what we are saying. People are saying time for change. Now you go to the sports fraternity, cricket, they are saying time for change. Yesterday I was speaking to the football fraternity. They are also begging for time for change, right? So across our sphere, we have a lot of work to do.
We do have a lot of work to do, but you know, when people say it's time for change, sometimes, well, you know, the question I always ask is, are they really wanting change, or is it about the platitude? Because everybody's saying time for change, so let's join the bandwagon and say time for change. So I think my question would be, what are they doing to bring about positive change, and how are they working to ensure that the changes are truly inclusive, they're transformative, and they empower everybody, not just a section or those who, as the corporate term is usually used, you know, fit, you know, who has the right fit. We all are the right fit, but it depends on who views you as the right fit. because you could be the most talented, you could be the most articulate, but then somebody in a position of leadership or position of power does not feel that you are the right fit. That immediately and automatically discriminates against you and puts you to the side. So we have to be sure that when, people are saying, they want change, it's a time to change. What changes are they wanting to see? And are they really open to having conversations around change?
So in your field of work, are you familiar with HISR? No?
No, what's H?
Not at all?
I don't do acronyms very well, I'm sorry.
No, this is well recorded worldwide. It's historic. Come on, I'm giving you some clues. Historic, institutional. Come on, bring it on.
No, I can't bring it on.
Systemic.
You have to.
Historic, institutional, systemic racism.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So,
Now, the context here is that the A can be alcohol, the R is for racism, and everything has to be looked at from yesterday years in order to understand that when it was historic, it means 100 years ago, 200 years ago, then that whole system becomes institutional, which then converts into being systemic. And then after that, you can add on the racism, or you can even add on addiction, alcoholism and so on. So we always have to look at yesterday to build a better today.
but whose lens are we looking at yesterday through?
We have to be well researched, and we have to read across the board, because narratives can be deceiving. Your narrative, my narrative
Are different.
different. So when look at the African narrative today, fresh news, the president of Ghana, when they are asking him to support the initiative in Ukraine, and what did he say? He brought on the table issues of equality, equity, diversity. And he said to the West, to the world, that how can I enjoin supporting your efforts in the Ukrainian war when what they are doing to black people there and Indian people? They're putting us to one side and not allowing us to leave that country. We are third-class citizens, human beings. And that was humanity speaking volumes. Yes?
Yes.
Now, he is in Africa, and they told him, well, some African countries are supporting the initiative. He said, no, those that are supporting it are the puppet regimes. And he refused to do so. Now, sometimes you have to be brave and speak volumes.
I think all the time you have to be brave.
And speak volumes.
And speak volumes. But also we have to understand the context and the content of what it is that we're being asked to speak truth to. So I don't know very much about Ghana and its leadership and how it's operating with the West or the Western allies. But if you look globally at how issues have been addressed and how they've been raised, there is the belief, or there is the perception that certain people are more than, or certain demographics are better than. It is for those of us who see and know that there is an injustice to speak up and ensure that for those people who are most aligned to us, we are a voice of truth, we are a voice of encouragement, rather than always being a voice of dissent. Because right now, today, what people are looking for in the whole discussion, or the whole agenda for change, true change, equitable change, inclusive change, is that it shouldn't always be black people speaking for black people, or Asian people or brown people speaking for Asian. It should be that each and every one of us has that humane trigger to see wrong and call it out, But we live in a world where there are various personal interests. So people will always posit self-interest and whatever benefit over what should collectively benefit each and every one of us. So if I went away thinking, well, it's nothing to do with me, so I'm not going to get involved in it, it might not involve me today, but at some point in time in the future, it will involve me, because that attitude, that behavior, that trend will only creep into what we feel are safe spaces.
Now, we're going back to our city. There's a message come here to me that we have a us and them situation. And one of our young ladies, aspiring 25-year-old, she told me that the cities across the country are very, very diverse now. The populations are extremely diverse, and social engineers were never equipped to know how to deal with the A to Z of diversities, right? So you got 50 plus diversities in the city here today. And each one of them, they come along with the 4 C's. Are you familiar with the 4 C's?
You tell me.
Caste, color, creed, culture. Yeah?
We all have it.
We all have it, and we all run with what we have in our mannerisms, in our food, in our dress sense, and all that. So when we are with the culture capital is what the schools are teaching now to their students at primary school, secondary school, which is a very good initiative because it all starts at school. Now, when you are at nursery, you don't have the issues with the separatism between people, between color. But as soon as the children are 4, 5, they hit the big world in a primary school, the dynamics change.
I don't believe it starts just at school. I think it starts at home as well.
Okay, I agree.
If you are a racist individual, your home is your safe space. So you will voice out lots of terrible things. And children are like sponges. They soak up what they hear. So when they're born, no child knows that I am white, I am black, I am brown, I'm mixed.
Not at all.
Nobody knows that. But as they grow up, you find out that parents, grandparents, uncles and aunts, friends start to indoctrinate, the child or the children into avoiding somebody who looks like. Don't speak to this particular class of person or color of person or because we are better than them. And so children start the formative years when they go into primary school. Most children in foundation, when they go in, are 3 and 4. Every child is a friend of theirs. Everybody looks like them. They share things. But you find out that when parents come to pick children up, they segregate themselves even on the playground. And children can read the signs. So you then have them slowly watching how parents will make sure that they only stay with a sect, a clique, people they feel comfortable with. What happens is the children start to imitate and emulate those behaviors. So 3 and 4-year-olds who were inseparable when they first started would get to year 2 and 3, suddenly having very different friendship groups because the parents never mix.
Of course, that is so true.
Yeah, it's difficult for a 6 or 7-year-old child to explain to the parents that I actually like, X, Y, even though they don't look like me, they're funny. But when you can't invite that child for your birthday party because the mom says, no, they're not like us. What are you teaching that child?
Well, I'll tell you a little historic story. Quite long time ago in the 60s, there are thousands of these stories, millions, but this particular one concerns a president of USA. And he did not invite a person of color called Sammy Davis Jr. He was a popular entertainer at that time. because he was black. And his colleague, which was Dean Martin, he refused to attend. He refused to attend because his friend, who was a person of color, was not invited. Right? So that, what you are saying, it's quite an occurrence throughout the world, isn't it?
It is. But this is where, as adults, we have a duty, not just to ourselves, we have a duty to our children and our grandchildren. We have a duty to society to unlearn those behaviors that have kept us bound, kept us captive, and created hard walls between communities. Because growing up, I never saw my dad or my mom with, any black person. So as a young black girl or young white girl or young white boy, even though I have friends who are black or brown, I dare not invite them to my home because my parents would frown against it. And then you start to breed distrust, which always shows up in places like, our corporate spaces, our workplace. Because if I've grown up to have a distrust that I can't explain,
of course,
I'm going to find it really difficult if I had a black manager to respect them. Because I have always been told I cannot associate with them because they are beneath me. Then suddenly... My worry
and my cry is we are in 2022.
We are.
We have embarked upon the digital revolution, right? Where digitization is the boss, right? And we, in that revolution, are meeting that the leaders in the tech are coming from India, from Nigeria, from China, and color has no distinction in the digital world.
Color doesn't, but you look at how the digital space has been used to propagate messages that are quite disingenuous to you and I.
Now, what we have to do, I'm proposing, now we are starting to work right now. We are working, you and I. You know that? We're not doing radio.
Yes.
We're not doing a radio chat here. Every morning, what we do is we start work.
Start a conversation, yes.
We work and we talk about partnerships. Now, in this partnership, you, the listeners, are all part of this journey. Now, when we have an aspiring teacher like Ashiedu here to assist us with her experience, we in the community are able to learn much and develop our own organizations. Right now, in all the large industries in the whole country, are taking on board, the sports fraternities are taking on board, they're employing EDI managers or directors, whatever title they have, across the board. Because sometimes it's a knee-jerk reaction, sometimes it's a step in the right direction.
Can I then pose a question then to you and perhaps to the listeners? It's okay to suddenly recruit an EDI manager or a director for inclusion or peoples or whatever you want to call it. But are those people really equipped and resourced to bring about the change that ought to be? Because this is where lots of those sort of programs fall flat.
The question to me is a capital N and a big O, which is also a zero, right? Is a big no. I'll tell you for why. I've been working on the ground in this field for the last 2.5 years, very actively. When I say on the ground, I go reach out and I study in detail the us and them scenario. I go talk to us and I go talk to them and I hear it from them. And then I start working out, well, I got to bring the humanity back into action. Because throughout the month, what are we doing here? We are doing humanity, solidarity, unity. This is what Ramadan is all about, to wake us up. Shared values. We have to build our community with our commonality, not with our differences. So our commonality is the positive part. Now, here, we may need a Medicare to explain to a human being the makeup of his body. We start there, right? It's not that when we are doing culture capital, people are ignorant. Why? Why are they like that? And one of the young ladies I told you about, she says, when we are living in ghettos, in pockets, in bubbles, we feel secure in them.
Yes.
So when I want to buy a house, I'll say, oh, I'll go to that area and I will buy my house there because my community, my people are living there.
Yeah.
So how is this city going to have 50 plus bubbles? How can that be possible?
It's a dangerous situation to imagine that a city such as Leicester will have hard lines between communities and be set up in quite fragmented bubbles, because the whole idea of a city such as this, the beauty of it is that we are able to co-mingle, we relate, quite intentionally because we have a lot in common. But coming back to something you said where we should be looking more around the commonalities rather than the differences. But I am of the opinion that we have to value the differences, because if we
that's where the food comes in.
If we set
that's where the
aside-
food comes in. You're moving now away from fish and chips to jollof rice.
and pounded yam and egusi soup and
Yeah.
all this kind of things. Yes.
There's that, and then you are talking about the biryani. Now all these foods from around the world.
It's not just the food that is the difference.
That's one of the.
It's just one.
Yeah.
You have the way we dress. You have
Yeah.
the way we, relate as families. As elders to young people to elders. How do we take? If you speak to the average white resident, white citizen anywhere in the world, what we deem as respect is very different. So, as a Nigerian, if I was to see somebody who is my elder, the expectation is that to greet them, I would dip my knees, or sometimes I would go on my knees as a sign of respect.
Okay, now, guys, we have only 4 minutes and 25 seconds left. It's now 24 seconds. Now, I'm going to live invite you to an iftar on Saturday this week. Are you up for that?
I am up for it, but I already am going out.
You're going out. What time are you going out?
I'm going to be in London on Saturday.
So there's not possible that you'll be able to come here for the iftar. Iftar here will be about 8:24, 8:25. Can you make it back here for that time?
If I am back in Leicester, I will definitely come.
Yeah, after I finish this program, I need to attentively check your train times, and then we're gonna make a date, right? We're gonna make a date. Now, are you familiar with the diversity pipeline?
I am, and I'm also familiar with the whole talent pipeline.
Okay. Now, with the diversity pipeline, I think you could be one of the persons in that pipeline who can make history, right? By setting the bar and showing the world how this city has created that diversity pipeline, and we are cross-networking across communities. We are breaking down the barrier of us and them.
The hard walls.
We are smashing the system called the class system, right? By everybody cross-networking with each other.
To smash the whole class system, it's not just about the them and us. So if you look at our cultural communities, one of the things that has historically, people still refer to it sometimes, is the hierarchies. So even in our communities, our cultural communities,
Yeah, we have the hierarchical system.
we have to
but-
break down those
Yeah,
hierarchies.
but we have inherited them from historic times.
Yeah,
but
this is where we
let
have
us
to
you
unlearn.
let us you and I and her and him and her
And
all
everybody
across the
who's willing,
city.
yes.
Let's all sit together. First thing we're gonna do is have some bites to get us energized.
Yes.
Yeah?
Food is always a
Yeah,
good
we get that, we
motivator,
get
yes.
ourselves energized, then we do the business. Right? We put on the table some smashing ideas collectively. Yes?
Yes.
From all the people involved in the diversity pipeline. Yes? And that pipeline can keep extended, can't it?
It should extend naturally.
Yeah.
If we work right,
We work together.
it should extend Now, it will not extend if we bring our biases to the table.
We
That is
leave
where
our
there is always
yeah.
the
Bias
challenge.
is our enemy, and we need to work together and understand culture capital. We need to understand, Ashiedu, you can take the lead on that to explain eloquently like you have done today to me. And I've absorbed every word that you have spoken, right? And my listeners, they also listen and they absorb. And when I'm walking on the street, they give me a reference to this particular discussion. And that's when I know that they are listening, right? So in your closing remarks today, please enlighten all of us.
So I think in closing, what I will say is, as a city, as a people, we are part of the same family, but we need to move away from the them and the us perceptions. We need our services, we need our city, we need our leaders to become more culturally sensitive, aware, competent, and intelligent. And what do I mean by that? It means as a city, as people from different parts of the world, as a global community, we have to know how to engage with each other without first looking for the difference. It is about valuing each other and ensuring that we are the best. We bring the best of us to every meeting.
Right, my brothers and sisters, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you all today and meeting my good friend, my new friend, straight in my phone book to stay there for a long time. Jazakallah khair. We shall join you tomorrow.